Hello everybody and welcome to another Top 10 edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com. You can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I'm Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Hello, friends.
Ruben Bressler.
Good evening. How are we doing?
Oh, we are lovely as we begin.
Much better.
Yes, everything's good. That's good. We begin with our choice of the top comment from last week in a segment we call Honorable Mention, where Ruben will tell us who was the most eloquent in letting us know what card we did not choose as one of our top 10 +1/+1 counter cards, and how mad he is that I chose Dublin Season as my number one. Ruben?
It's really inexcusable, and I can't wait for it to be his number one again this week. Our honorable mention comes from Anthony Rofino, who writes, as an out and proud gay bear, hey, Evan.
Hey.
I have to give it to the queen, Ayala, queen among bears. Finally, giving the bear commander we wanted for years, she gives a lot of use to the 2-mana 2/2s you run in the 99, growing them, or more typically her, then showing why bears are on the top of the food chain by fighting other creatures. Yas, queen! Slay!
We had a lot of really good comments this week. There were people that were taking sides in your battle with the top. There were people coming for me and not having Grave Troll. I brought shame to the family. I saw this comment. Someone called me Boobala, which I died about.
Yep.
And so the comments have been very, very lovely lately. Thank you all for chiming in.
All over the place, from Twitter to Facebook to YouTube, just everywhere.
Mm-hmm. It's been very nice. For those who don't know, a Eula, Queen Among Bears, is a green and generic mana, a rare from Modern Horizons that is a 2/2 legendary bear. Whenever another bear enters the battlefield under your control, you choose one, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target bear, or target bear you control fights target creature you don't control. So yeah.
Not bad.
Real berry, real fast, all for 2 mana.
Get buried undervalued.
Very necessary.
There you go. See, we use it in different ways. That's how we do
Just
it here. We work it out.
Necessities.
Goodness gracious. Well, we get to talk. Well, first of all, congratulations to Anthony. Please contact Aaron on social media. Of course, she blocks you on all of them.
We talk often.
Or contact Evan on his new to come Barely There.
OnlyFans. That's right. I want to read the phone book or something. They tell you can do something that isn't taking off your clothes, but that's all I read about.
Evan's got that pleasing baritone.
Hey, y'all.
He doesn't have to grin and
Y'all
bear
want to
it.
go back to the holler and, hail far and poop far and save matches? That's what y'all like to do?
That sounds like Cracker Barrel taste.
I love it. I love it. And you know someone would pay for it. Let's just...
Yeah, of course.
Thanks again to CoolStuffInc.com for sponsoring this giveaway, and stay tuned for our top 10 list this week, and maybe you can win next week's free gift certificate, because it's time to talk about -1/-1 counters. My philosophy for this one, particularly based on some feedback, was that I wanted to make sure that every card has -1/-1 counter on the card text.
Wow.
I'm not even in the reminder text. No persist creatures for me. If you got it, that's fine. But for me, I was like, it's got to have the word. Let's do the word in the thing. If it doesn't have mill, for example,
right,
or if it doesn't have +1/+1, for example,
sure,
maybe that's not a good enough. All right, so we'll do this.
Same.
Fine.
I don't have any persist, and I also don't have any infect, like any infect creatures.
Right.
So mine is just pure, physical -1/-1 counters.
Meanwhile, I've got both of those things, as well as Wither,
cool,
on my list, and so it'll be a good mix, and I think that it's important to have both. So y'all went with the Oracle text, and I went with the full Oracle text. If y'all are searching, for example, on Scryfall, you can go O:, and that's the Oracle text, but you can go FO:, and get everybody with reminder text as well.
Okay.
There you go. All right. So with that said, we move on here to number 10. I've got this weird thing where until we reach number 3, basically, every other choice of mine is higher on someone else's list. I got 4 hires and a same,
Jeepers.
which starts with number 10. So I ain't got a number 10. So Aaron, do you have a number 10?
Yeah, my number 10 is a creature that really flew under the radar there. When the latest batch of gods were revealed from Amonkhet, you had the Scarab God, you had the Locust God, and then you had this god. And the Scarab God just dominated Standard. That was the god that we really talked about. And then when you played Commander, the Locust God really shined there because you had things like Paradox Engine. You could really kind of go ham with the blue and red, storm spells. And And this card just never really got a lot of love. It never saw any standard play. I have yet to really see play in Commander, but I do think there's a lot of potential here. And so my number 10 is the Scorpion God. So the Scorpion God was printed in Hour of Devastation. 3 colorless, a black and a red gets you a legendary creature God, 6 power, 5 toughness. Whenever a creature with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, draw a card. You can pay 1 colorless, a black and a red to put a -1/-1 counter on another target creature. And then when the Scorpion God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next upkeep. So it kind of reminds me of Hapatra a little bit. I was doing some research on this card on EDH Rec and plays a lot of the similar cards. It's just a little bit nastier, which I really enjoy. It doesn't really have like this sort of token sub-game the way that Hapatra does. It's just sort of raw carnage, like just killing things, just drawing lots of cards. Rakdos is a really fun color combination for this. I really like this card, and if I didn't already have, 2 Rakdos decks, I'd probably build another.
Nice.
It seems like a nice sort of Rakdos card to put in almost any of those decks. They have a lot of synergy over time now with so many removal spells and so many creatures. The Locust God was neat, and of course the Scarab God was crushing.
Ran standard.
Yeah, and this one's like, whatever. It's like $1.50 or something.
The biggest thing that I recall about the Scarab God, about the Scorpion God, was its reveal at Grand Prix Las Vegas from inside of the Sandcastle.
Oh, yeah.
Remember this?
Yeah,
This was the giant card that was inside of the Sandcastle.
Nice.
They had to debut Hour of Devastation. This was the first card, I think, from Hour of Devastation that we saw.
Wow.
And, that's what I recall about that.
I feel like Wizards thought this was a bigger deal than it ended up being.
Or they underestimated how good Scarab God was.
Sure.
It's true. Maybe both can be true.
Either or.
Ruben, what's number 10?
My number 10 is a card that is just value. It's just good. It never really broke through in Standard, although it saw some play in zombie decks. But the zombie decks weren't very good at this time. It was good in Cube, but I guess not quite good enough in Cube to stay in the Cube. It's just a good card that I don't think, and it's also only been printed the one time. It does also have a Wizards Play Network promo. But Skinrender just never really broke through, and I love this card. Yeah. It's such a solid creature. Skinrender, 2 colorless black for a 3/3 zombie. When Skinrender enters the battlefield, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature. This is a Flametongue Kavu in black. I don't know why this never saw any play anywhere. It's a quarter, only ever printed in Scars of Mirrodin. It's one of those cards where I look at it and I go, that card's great. It just never did anything.
Yeah, I love a Skinrender. I had one in my Hapatra deck for that very reason, being able to distribute the -1/-1 counters. If you're playing zombies, you're probably going to have a way to get some recursion on this, and so you'll get that ETB trigger again. Zombies also tends to be easily outclassed. They tend to run kind of low to the ground, and so being able to bring creatures down to your level is really valuable. And it's also just a nice form of removal. -1/-1 counters famously gets around indestructible, and so, someone's very tempted to throw like a Hazoret in front of you. Well, that Hazoret's going to be a little bit smaller now. And so I love a Skinrender. I need no excuse to use this card.
Yeah, this is one of those cards that, it's at the very cusp. This is one of those cards that is an all-star limited. This is a first pick windmill slam easy in the Scars of Mirrodin format. It's just as good as advertised when you play it. Yeah. It's just not on rate. It needed to be a 4/4. It needed to have flash. It needed to have something that just...
Cheapers.
Yeah, I know, right?
I can't imagine this card being better than it is. The numbers are also right.
The numbers are really good, but maybe as a 3/4, again, that. There's a magical amount of toughness in every standard format that you need to sort of match or be prepared for. And this one, as I recall, Scars of Mirrodin, was this all the way back in...
This was like Delver. This was like Blue-White Delver.
Yeah, it's Blue-White Delver. They still had Incinerate, or I don't think Lightning Bolt was still around back then. But
no, I don't think so.
But either way, this is one of those cards that, again, all-star limited, just does not get there and constructed.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on here to number 9. I have a number 9. Yay!
Hey, welcome.
This is one of my favorite cards. It is an old school card. Thank God it's not on the reserve list so we can have new, interesting versions. I always enjoyed what this card did. I had it in my cube for a very, very long time. I took it out because it does something weird in the color, because no one really thinks about blue getting creature pumps, let alone enchant creatures like Unstable Mutation, which I absolutely love. All the way from Arabian Nights. This card is dope. This card is so much better than people give credit for. I was destroying people in Ultimate Masters drafts. I only got to play in a couple, but I played blue, and I played every Unstable Mutation, and it was not close. Card is dope. For 1 blue mana, it is Enchant Aura. It's an uncommon, even way back then. I guess it was a common in Arabian Nights. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3. At the beginning of the upkeep of the enchanted creature's controller, put a -1/-1 counter on that creature. I will spare you the original Arabian Nights verbiage. It's weird. Yeah. But this card is great.
Put this on your flying men and go to town.
If I remember correctly, I had seen people playing Bogles in Legacy and Vintage, and using this as just like, whoop.
Put this on a Geist of St. Traff with Daze and Force of Will backup. Yep, that's what you do. That was the Blouses deck.
Yeah.
Nice.
It was popular for about half a second.
Card is like, it's a permanent, well, no, a semi-permanent giant growth, and it's a semi-permanent +2/+2, and a semi-permanent it takes so long for it to kind of hurt you. You've gotten all the value out of it by the time it does that. So
yeah, the game is over by that point. You've got it's effectively 6 extra damage before it starts hurting or goes away, and then it's like 5 turns before it kills itself. So yeah, it's a good card.
Yeah, it's in the color with the best evasion too. So it all kind of works together. This was a Time Spiral time shifted card, so in that format too, in Time Spiral I got to beat people to death with this thing because no one valued it. That said, Aaron, what's number 9?
My number 9 is also a zombie that puts -1/-1 counters on things. The only difference between this and Skin Render is it puts the -1/-1 counters on creatures you control, but you're probably okay with it, and I'll tell you why. My number 9 is Plague Belcher. Plague Belcher is 2 colorless and a black, originally printed in Amonkhet, is a zombie beast. 5/4. A 5/4 for 3. What? And it also has Menace. When Plague Belcher enters battlefield, put 2 -1/-1 counters on a creature you control, and then whenever another zombie you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life. So there was a zombie deck in Amonkhet. It was very aggressive. You were running Lord of the Accursed, things of that nature. And so it gave zombies this sort of aristocrat angle that it didn't really have before, where, even if you did manage to kill these things, you were still losing life because of this, and it itself is a zombie. You could kill a zombie, and then when that zombie died, you'd lose life. And so it made combat a bit of a nightmare. It always closed out games a lot faster. And it's just a big body by itself. The zombie decks were known for kind of these board stalls. Who could really get the Menace first to kind of break through. And this was just a nice, beater. Great in Commander. If you're playing a sort of zombie deck, you definitely want this. This in Grave Crawler is hilarious. And so you can just do some really, really dumb things with this card. And even then, I don't think it got enough love in Standard when it was legal.
I mean, the numbers here are pretty spectacular. Yeah. If this was Hunted Nightmare before Hunted Nightmare, or Rotting Regisaur before Rotting Regisaur, just undercosted black 3-drop with 1,000,000 power that kind of has a drawback, but you can easily mitigate.
Yeah, its drawback basically helps itself, which in many ways I feel like would have made this card much better. Like this, I love the idea, the design where they say, here's a creature with stats that are way too good, but you're going to put a -1/-1 counter on something. You ain't got to put those counters on this guy, but if you just top deck him, you can, but more than likely you want to kill this other thing, get a free trigger out of it, and then have a 5/4 menace left over for a whopping 3 mana. That is awesome, and I hope to see more of that type of stuff in the future.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Ruben, what's number 9?
My number 9 is a card that I think it's probably got the highest win percentage of any card I've ever seen, because as soon as you cast it, the game just ends. Because there aren't many games that go on after Triumph of the Hordes resolves.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's a heck of a card. Triumph of the Hordes from New Phyrexia, also from Mirrodin Pure versus New Phyrexia online dual decks.
True.
And the Mystery Booster. These are about $9 still, because they are extremely popular in EDH. Triumph of the Hordes, 2 colorless green. It is an uncommon sorcery. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect. So extremely popular in Titania decks, Prime Speaker Zagana or Rafik kind of decks as well. anything that wants to take advantage of like 2, 3, 4 creatures on the board at any one time, or if you're trying to double strike your way through with Rafik.
Yeah, I mean, this card just ends games out of nowhere. You know, if you're playing any sort of green token deck, or even just a green fatties deck, I thought about putting this in my Omnath Locus of Mana deck for a while there, and so, you know, because green, you know, is known for having a lot of really big creatures. They don't always have trample, and that leads to really awkward board states where you just get kind of chump blocked by saprolings all day, which is no good. But this is a way to not only push through, but really just ensure that the game's going to get over very, very quickly. And this was much more expensive than this for a while there. It was almost, I think, $20 at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needed that reprint in the Mystery Booster.
It was wild.
Badly.
Yeah.
But you have a card that does a very, very unique thing. And for those who don't know what Infect does, creatures with Infect deal damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters, and to players in the form of poison counters, which if you get 10 poison counters, you lose. So this is the kind of the only thing, as far as I know, that's going to give you a mass, everything gets Infect type of effect. It makes them larger. My God, it gives them trample.
Yeah.
It does a lot for 4 mana.
It does a lot.
You know, there might have been a deck in a world of Callblades, probably not, but maybe in a world without Callblades, there might have been a deck that used this to just finish people off out of nowhere, make some tokens here, tokens there, and run you over.
It would be nice. I think that, you know, too many mana leaks existed. There were too many ways to take advantage of the Triumph of the Hordes strategy and standard. But it certainly ends games a turn sooner and probably more efficiently than an overrun.
Yeah.
Wizards, just as of this recording, bumped Ravenous Trap, a 50-cent Zendikar uncommon, to rare and double masters. You know, you can pull it from your $100 VIP pack. Instead of taking a card like this one, or Manamorphose, that's also in double masters, and not making it rare, and keeping your $10 uncommons, and that's
I am
fine.
all in favor of Graveyard Hate being harder to obtain, so...
It's crazy. Anyway, this card is super dope. It was a meteoric bomb in limited, and was great. All right, let's move on here to number 8. Ruben, what's number 8?
This is the first of 3 hires that are on someone else's list.
That includes me too. Aaron, you got a number 8?
I do. I tried really hard not to pick cards that I've picked before, but I can't help it. I've said it before. I love this card so much. I love the design of it. It's a shame that it never really saw more play, but I'm always looking for a reason to play with it in Commander. My number 8 is Channeler Initiate. So Channeler Initiate is 1 colorless and a green. It was also printed in Amonkhet. A lot of Amonkhet love on my list. It's a human druid with 3 power and 4 toughness at 2 mana. When Channeler Initiate enters the battlefield, you put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. Most of the time, this is going to get the counters, but you're okay with that because you can tap it and remove one of those counters to have the Initiate give you 1 mana of any color. So this is a mana dork that can do things other than dork. This can be a decent body once you remove the counters. If you're also playing a dedicated -1/-1 counter deck, you can refuel this thing. So if you decide that you really like this, or if you're playing with, you know, even the Belcher, put the counters on this, and those counters aren't so bad because not only can it remove them, but it can do things with them. And so I just love this take on dorks so much because more often than not, a dork can just dork. And I love the versatility of this card.
Yeah, this was definitely on my short list. This card shows you the versatility of the -1/-1 counter designs in Amonkhet. I thought this was great. This was sort of the Paradise Druid of its time. This saw a ton of play, as I recall. And when you're done kind of getting all the mana out of it, you got a 3/4 beater left behind.
Thing. Exactly, yeah. I like that it's relevant early and it stays relevant in the mid-game. And you can even put more counters on it later if you want to. I mean, and you can, you know, get rid of counters, essentially. Clean your counters. Launder them through your Channeler Initiate if you need to.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this card's really excellent.
And sometimes you just want to, like, you needed a 2 mana 3/4 right then. I'll kill my crappy token or whatever, or my
kill my thing with a death trigger.
What was the morph thing? It was different. The what was the other manifest? That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Kill my manifested thing. Right. All right, let's move on here to number 7 because we ain't got no number 8. Ruben, what's number 7?
My number 7 features a keyword that I don't believe appears anywhere else on my list, which means it doesn't appear anywhere else on anyone else's list. And that word is Wither. Wither was Infect before Infect, except for that it just dealt damage to players, but it still dealt -1/-1 counters to creatures.
That's confusing.
And that meant that you could have more efficient creatures that had Wither on them. Bloodbraid Elf was a menace to society for a very long time. There were many things that you put into play with Bloodbraid Elf, from Maelstrom Pulse to Anathemancer to Liliana of the Veil, but among the first that you would want to pair with Bloodbraid Elf was Boggart Ramgang.
Yeah!
This was the first Jund. This was the card you wanted to hit off of your Bloodbraid Elves. Boggart Ramgang is 3 of the hybrid mana of red and green, so 3 total mana, for a 3/3 haste Wither. Goblin Warrior, originally from Shadowmoor. And also in Fire versus Lightning. Man, that is some stats. 3/3 for 3 with haste and a relevant combat ability. So if you attacked into their 5/5 or whatever, you didn't get a huge downside just from trading. Yeah, it's pretty. This card.
Those are the
For its
goblins
time.
in the tree trunk, right? Like,
Yeah.
That's the one that
Like
they're
the
driving a
Flintstone
car.
mobile.
Yeah.
They're getting it. Like I'm telling you, back in the day, because we're at this point, Shadowmoor is back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in the day, this card was super exciting. It went right into my cube. This card was fan-freaking-tastic. It was near the top of the power curve for creatures at the time. And honestly, for what Wither does, I would argue it would be very popular in Standard now if it were in the format.
Boggart Ramgang would see Standard play right now.
Card is dope.
Absolutely.
Haste is very powerful.
Yeah.
All right. Aaron, what's number 7?
Number 7 is one of my favorite removal spells. It was a snapping clue to my Hapatra deck. I was always jonesing for a reason to use this. It's also the polar opposite of another card from the same block. My number 7 is Incremental Blight. So Incremental Blight is 3 colorless and 2 black, originally printed in Shadowmoor. It is a sorcery. It says put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, 2 -1/-1 counters on another target creature, and 3 -1/-1 counters on a third target creature. If you're playing with Hapatra, that's good, clean living right there, because you're getting a snake every single time, and you're probably killing some things while you're at it. This is the opposite of Incremental Growth, which does the same thing, but in green, and with +1/+1 counters. And so I really like the duality of this. I like that the same artist did the art for both of these, and you get to see, on the one hand, the, vibrant pumpkins, and then on the other hand, the decaying, dying pumpkins. And so I love the combination of the two, but this one, the minute I draw this, I'm like, ooh, what can I kill?
Right. This was also based off of Cone of Flame originally.
Oh, okay.
Which is the red one that dealt 1 damage and 2 damage and 3 damage. And then they also made Bestial Menace, which is another green one that made a 1/1, a 2/2, and a 3/3.
Okay.
Yep.
I don't know if they'll ever make like blue. I don't even know what they could make in blue and white that would be incremental, whatever.
Draw 1 card, draw 2 cards, draw 3 cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Right.
Life game, maybe?
But yeah, this card is just this card was another huge bomb in Limited, and it's a ton of fun to play with.
This card was my number 10 because I love this card. Absolutely love this card. Because this card, let me tell you, it was a meteoric bomb. This is the best limited card in Shadowmoor.
3-for-1.
It was
Really?
it was a 3-for-1. It was an absolute monster. You just killed people out of nowhere. Like Wizards was like, I don't know if pissed is the right word, but they were not happy that they like wanted to mirror the mana cost, because you're getting way more than 5 mana when they give you the crappy removal spells in limited. No man, 5 mana, you basically wipe their board, destroy any presence they even had. If they had a 5/5, a 4/4, and a 2/2, they got a 1/1, a 2/2, and a 3/3 or whatever. Like it's just it's at that point it ruins their entire board. This thing is absolutely amazing. I love Incremental Blight, and I get why it's not very expensive. But man, I would be afraid if this thing were printed a new set.
There's also Gruesome Menagerie, I just remembered.
Yep.
It brings back a 1, a 2, and a 3 from the graveyard. So we got another 5 mana, 1, 2, 3 the hard way.
I'm surprised that that's not seeing more play right now, because we got some really tasty targets. I thought Archfiend's Vessel would be the one that would bring that one back, because I remember playing that deck when it first came out, and the 1-drops were really weak. You had no shortage of 2s and 3s, but you were always like, do I really just want to bring back a Llanowar Elf? And I thought when this card came out, people would be like, oh, that's the 1-drop we need, and no one's really bothered. So I guess when Reclamation's dominating the format, you can't be putzing around with that.
Can't do much, yeah.
When they give you a free mana doubler, yeah, it kind of messes up things. Turns out. So for my number 7 here, I have lied to you, and I apologize.
What?
Because while every card does have -1/-1 counters in the text of them, I did say that none of them have persist, and that was a lie. And what I believe is the final, one of the final cards that Rebecca Gay actually illustrated. And it's weird, and I love it. It ain't worth nothing, even though it was printed only one time in Shadowmoor. Even though what it does, I think, is really cool and interesting. Heartmender has a place in my heart as a rare from Shadowmoor. It's 2 Celestia mana and 2 generic mana, so 2 green or white and 2 generic mana. It's a 2/2 rare elemental. At the beginning of your upkeep, you remove a -1/-1 counter from each creature you control. That is each creature, which is often completely negating whatever your opponent's trying to do if they're doing that. But it also has persist. When this creature dies, if it had no -1/-1 counters on it, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a -1/-1 counter on it. This card is so cool.
It removes itself.
Yes, it keeps itself alive. It keeps all the counters off your guys. Like, you got to do something about that Heartmender. Yeah, you're overpaying. You're paying a hefty price for a 2/2, but you can pump it up. You can do stuff with it. You can make it scary if you want to, but mainly it keeps you alive and keeps all your stuff good.
Hashtag gay pride.
That's right. This is maybe the weirdest art.
It's really odd.
It's one of the weirdest arts that Rebecca Gay has ever drawn, if not the weirdest. And probably in the top 10 strangest pieces of art. Like, nothing looks like Heartmender. And also, nothing really operates like
What
Heartmender.
about this is heart-like? Like, it's like a monkey with spider legs and a tail.
It's because it's an elemental. They just were like, here are 2 words.
Yeah.
And
it's whatever.
It's like,
go nuts. It's fine. It's an acid trip or something. What's going on there? All right, let's move on here to number 6. As it is an even number, I ain't got one. It's higher on someone else's list. Ruben, you got a number 6?
I don't have a 6 or a 5, but that's the end of my hires.
I got you.
Okay, all right, Aaron.
My number 6 is the card I love. If you're playing the -1/-1 deck, whether it be Hapatra, whether it be the Scorpion God, whether it be anything else, you absolutely want this card. This is a card that gives me a case of the broken giggles because it just gets out of hand so quickly. I can't even say it without laughing. I'm sorry. My number 6 is Blowfly Infestation.
Yep.
So Blowfly Infestation is 2 colorless and a black. It's from Shadowmoor. It's an enchantment. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, if it had a -1/-1 counter on it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. And so, depending on what's going on the board, you can get these like almost Massacre Girl-like turns where it's like, kill, 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 it died, cool, that died, put a counter on that died. Like, it just starts rolling. And before you know it, things are dying. It's just hilarious. Like, this is another one of those cards that, like, the minute I saw it, I was like, I want to know what love is, and it's in this card.
Yep.
This card was
one of the best -1/-1 counter cards that is available. There's another. What's the 3 mana? I think it's an Amonkhet.
Nest of Scarabs. That's a good one.
Dust
too.
of Scarabs. Yep. Another good.
But that one that doesn't actually put counters on, so I didn't put that on my list.
There's also Crumbling Ashes, which I came across. If we're going to talk about it later, stop me. But it's a $7 uncommon from Eventide.
Yeah.
Really? Crumbling what?
Crumbling Ashes.
Crumbling Ashes.
Yeah.
At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy target creature with a -1/-1 counter on it.
Brutal.
Wow, that is crazy. And Blowfly Infestation, beyond being insanely dumb and limited, imagine having 2 of these things. It was ridiculous. This card is neat. It's almost $3 just because they just haven't reprinted it anywhere. No random dual decks or master set.
I think it was up to 5 for a while there. Like, I remember it being a little pricey for my taste, but it's also just fun to say, like, just Blowfly Infestation.
Your opponent can have a board of infinite 1/1s, and you can play the card Scar and kill them all.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Feels really good. Yeah.
All right, let's move on here to number 5. You don't got one, Ruben, but I do. This cracks my top 5. I wanted to make sure that I had this in the top 5. This was very close to a card that is similar to it that I did not choose that maybe one of you guys did, so I'm not going to talk about it. But for this one, this card is dope. I appreciate the fact that they've printed it enough. There's a cool Friday Night Magic version if you wanted to get that, but they've printed enough otherwise. It's not that expensive. It's super cool. I loved it in limited. This is one of my favorite limited cards to play in the Scars of Mirrodin format. Contagion Clasp just makes me so happy. Contagion Clasp is a 2 generic mana uncommon artifact from Scars of Mirrodin. When it enters the battlefield, you put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, and for 4 generic mana, you tap : to proliferate. Choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind they already have. So that is awesome. This card's great. Love it.
Yeah, 2 mana to get a 1/1 counter, a little expensive. Repeatable proliferate to 4 mana and tap, a little expensive. Put it together, it's fine. This is a perfectly reasonable card. This saw a good amount of constructed play, and was very good in limited, obviously. Yeah. And as far as I'm aware, is like still serviceable. Like they could reprint this in standard, it would be good and it wouldn't be overpowered.
Yeah, proliferate is a very powerful ability, and the ability to just keep it going, on and on. Getting limited, this is great. And of course, if you don't know or understand, the infect mechanic means that you can proliferate to give them more poison counters.
Also give yourself more experience counters.
Yeah, come on. That's fun. All right, Aaron, what's number 5?
My number 5 is one of a cycle of cards. It doesn't get talked about as often as the green version, but this is still pretty serviceable. It still goes for about $3 to $5, and there's so many things to love about this. When I first came back to Magic, one of my first standard decks was monoblack infect, and so I had a lot of fun with this card. I've also had it in my Hapatra deck, and if I ever build my Scorpion God deck, it is going in there. Number 5 is Black Sun Zenith. So Black Sun Zenith is X and 2 black. It was originally printed in Mirrodin Besieged. It's a sorcery. Put X -1/-1 counters on each creature, and then shuffle Black Sun Zenith into its owner's library. So there's so much to love about this card. It is a customizable board wipe that you can choose exactly how much you need. These are -1/-1 counters too, so it gets around things like indestructible. You shuffle it back into your library, so it's a board wipe that you have a reasonable chance of drawing again. I just love everything about this, and I think it's great. I think even if you're not even playing like a -1/-1 strategy, it's still just a solid board wipe to have if you're playing black and Commander. Even if you can't necessarily kill everything, you can at least substantially weaken it so that you can come back and get the rest of it. And I just love this.
This card is great. This was my number 6. So like I was right there with you in terms of this being awesome. This is the number 1 rated EDH rec card when just searching for -1/-1 counters, not the full Oracle, just the Oracle. And so I thought that was neat. This card is great, even as part of a fantastic cycle that I really enjoyed. The Zeniths were super cool, and they've only been printed a few times in Mirrodin Besieged and Commander 2014, so that's awesome. But this is one of those cards that really just shows you the power of -1/-1 counters, because it just shrinks everything forever at that point, permanently.
So my old cube group, before I moved to Roanoke for the Star City Games job, I used to play every Thursday night with Matt Cranstuber, Sam Stoddard, Greg Hainig, Jacob Brandstetter, a bunch of folks. One of the guys, I forget his name, but one of the guys loved Black Sun Zenith and would first pick it every time it was in a pack. Over everything else in a cube.
Black Lotus,
non-power. Not power. Okay, remember, Cranny's cube is no power.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
So this was over every fetch land.
Over
this was
Jitte,
over Jitte. Yep, over everything. Black Sun Zenith.
Also, please tell me I'm not the only one that gets Black Hole Sun in their head when they look at this card.
It's in there.
I tried so hard not to sing it. But wash away the rain.
Oh, yeah.
Chris Cornell, we love you.
Yeah, he's great. My number 4 is higher on someone else's list, and I'm happy about that because this card is dope. We'll talk about it later. Ruben, what's number 4?
My number 4, hey, welcome back, everybody. My number 4 is, did I talk about Infect yet? I did. I talked about Triumph of the Hordes. I have another Infect card. It's the, it's like the reason for the season. Like, this card is the best Infect card, in my humble opinion. It's so good, in fact, that it's in non-infect decks, and you kill people with infect in just affinity sometimes. My number 4 is Inkmoth Nexus. Inkmoth Nexus taps to add a colorless mana, and for just a colorless mana, it becomes a 1/1 Blink Moth artifact creature with flying and infect. Until end of turn, it's still a land. Originally from Mirrodin Besieged, it's about $15 for the cheapest versions, and it has been very popular throughout its life in every format.
Yeah, and it also has that amazing new Phyrexian butterfly secret lair version, which is incredible. This being a callback to Blink Moth Nexus, which made it just a 1/1 flyer. This one has Infect, so it's twice as good. You pump it a few times and they're dead. It's a land, so it's an uncounterable creature for all intents and purposes.
You also can't abrupt decay it. Like there's a lot of removal out there that specifically says destroy target non-land, which gets really awkward with Nexus.
A lot of disfigures have been pointed at a lot of Inkmoth Nexuses. Sure. That's all I'm saying.
I've countered them with Vines the Vastwood.
Wow. I love to Dark Blast them.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Get you. Well, this is one of those cards that if I were including Infect, they would have 100% be on my list. Aaron, what's number 4?
So my number 4 is not the most powerful card, but it packs a lot of nostalgia for me. I mentioned that monoblack Infect was one of my first standard decks when I came back to Magic, and this is a card that I ran multiple copies of. I'm sure it probably wasn't even that good, but I have nothing but fond memories of this. It's not technically an Infect card, but it does give poison counters. My number 4 is Virulent Wound. Don't judge me. So it's 1 black for Mirrored and Besieged. It's an instant, and you put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, and then when that creature is put into a graveyard this turn, its controller gets a poison counter. So if I remember correctly, there were a lot of little creatures in that format. Humans was a deck at that time, and so just being able to start off with just a nice clean way to kill a champion of the parish before it got too big, and it also gave a poison counter. So if you can do what your strategy is without deviating too far from it, this is a removal spell and gives you poison counters. That's exactly what you want in mono black Infect. And so or you could also this could be the finishing touch for a creature where, you would get a creature down. Oh, it's got 1 damage. And just get it. And then you give them a poison counter. And I just loved this card so much. And I love the flavor text where it says, the extent of Girk's healing was don't pick at it. Like, it's just so adorable. And I love it so much.
Yeah, this card was absolutely fantastic. And, it was a great little trick, right? This was like one of the sweet little tricks that they had in the limited format. It was a way to get those counters out there to make poison kind of happen. You can have both without really saying the word infect, which I thought was kind of clever, right? Mm-hmm. This card is really nice. This is one of those cards that, when they do the great designer search, this is the type of commons they want to see where they're like, oh, you did it, but you didn't do it overtly, but you still did it.
Yeah,
that's
see
really
what
cool.
You've done there.
Exactly, which I think is sweet. All right, so let's move on here to number 3. Ruben, what's number 3?
What do Quicken Toast, Gifts Rock, Rock Midrange, Maverick, Coco, Jund, and Pod all have in common?
I think I know, but we'll see. Go ahead.
Well, they all share the same 3-drop in common. This is the last entry of keywords on my list. No. I've got no more Persist, no more Wither, no more Infect after we talk about Kitchen Finks.
Oh, God, Kitchen Finks. I love this card.
Kitchen Finks is a colorless and 2 Celestian mana, so 3 mana total. For a 3/2 oof, when Kitchen Finks enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life, and it has Persist. This is just like the best value. I mean, this was like the worst thing for me to see as a red mage. It's the worst thing to see as a control player. Yeah. It's good every time you play it. And oh, by the way, it's a combo piece. Yeah. Alongside of, we might talk about some of the other things that combo with this later on. But it's kind of everything to everybody.
There is a small contingent of people out in the world who want nothing more than to win the game with a Kitchen Finks and a +1/+1 counter. They don't care if they have to do it with Birthing Pod. They don't care if it involves Anafenza. But if you say, hey, I got a deck that'll help you win the game, their little ears perk up like Scooby, and they're like, and they just, that's all they want to do. And God bless them. They're like the mill people. They just, that's what they came for.
There was, there's definitely certain creatures in Magic's history when you can say things like, there's another sort of notch, right? We've reached a point when they made the card in Invasion, the 5 mana, green black, 3 generic mana, 6/6.
Spirit Monger?
Spirit Monger, thank you. Spirit Monger. They make Spirit Monger.
But yes.
Apocalypse. Invasion block. But you had, there's kind of, these are watermarks of like, wow, creatures are that good now. Mm-hmm. Kitchen Finks was the best creature like for years. Like it's not even close. This thing goes in everything. The rate was fantastic for the time, still is fantastic. This card would be amazing in standard if they reprinted it. It would be absolutely everywhere. The value coming and going, gaining 4 life of all this, doing 3 damage and then 2 damage. Like, holy cow. Kitchen Finks is absolutely amazing. They haven't come close to printing something at this rate in a very, very long time, honestly, since Kitchen Finks itself. Like, I can't think of anything that's given this much value, has onboard presence. My God, I can't wait to draft every single one I see. I'll play every single one I can in standard. It's great coming and going. Oh my God, Kitchen Finks is great.
It's ridiculous. This card is absurd in every matchup.
It's so good.
Less than
it's just so
$1
good.
now. That's a good thing.
That's a great thing.
Yeah, they were like $8 for a minute, and then they got reprinted a lot.
Yeah, thanks to the pod people.
There you go. And then Pod got banned too, so.
Well,
then you had the Anafenza thing, and then I think they kind of gave up the ghost a little bit. But they're out there. They're waiting. Just
waiting. All right. Aaron, what's number 3?
So this is an amped up version of a card that was already discussed. I have a lot of fond memories of this card as of recently. I got to appear on EDH and Chill with Pleasant Kenobi, Commander's Quarters, and Ben Wheeler. And I got to find an interesting use for Proliferate, particularly when everybody has a copy of this card. My number 3 is Contagion Engine. So Contagion Engine is 6 colorless with some Scars of Mirrodin. It is an artifact. When Contagion Engine enters battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature target player controls. And then 4 colorless and a tap to proliferate and then proliferate again. So in that game, Kenobi had a Tanglewire.
nice.
And people and we all had copies of Contagion Engine thanks to there was a removal spell that like gets rid of something and then everyone gets copies of it. And so all we did was we kept pumping this thing up to keep the Tanglewires.
Sure.
And I was able to win the game thanks to Grimgrin, because Grimgrin, even if you tap it with Tanglewire, can just whoop. And so Grimgrin was immune to Tanglewire, and I was able to punch through. But just being able to, when you think of Proliferate, you typically think of Infect. You think of maybe loyalty counters, or you think of -1/-1 counters. You like finding, it's neat to find new uses for Proliferate, where it's like, oh, that's a counter. And then just radically changing the game that way.
This was my number 8, another of the extremely popular EDH staples. There are only 4 cards in the history of Magic the Gathering with the word again in their text box, and they're all very exciting. Contagion Engine, Roalesque, which says proliferate and then proliferate again, Jadelight Ranger, which explores and then explores again, and Game of Chaos, which says you flip a coin and then you can repeat that process a bunch of times. That's
absurd. And if you include the silver borders, we're up to 6 things.
Those have the word against.
Oh, you're right.
Again.
Oh, you're totally right. Well, I apologize. Okay, this card was close to me. I chose Contagion Clasp instead of Contagion Engine, honestly, because I thought one of you guys would choose Contagion Engine. And the other half is because I really like Contagion Clasp and kind of talk about that too. This is like the souped up rare version of the uncommon, as it puts all the counters, and of course just on their stuff, so all of your stuff is clean, as it were.
And oh, by the way, a nuclear powered bomb in every limited format that it's allowed to be played in.
Oh Lord, yeah. This card is like ridiculously OP when you finally slam it on turn 6 or whatever, and then then you untap and you give them all another -1/-1 counter. And if the game hasn't ended by then, I don't know what's happening. Like, what's going on with your life, because this card is fantastic. My number 3 was a good card in standard, just good on rate. Like, yes, it's part of lots of weird combos to make infinite mana, and that's fine, but sometimes you just need a 2-mana elf that taps for mana, and you can put a counter on it to untap it with Devoted Druid. Devoted Druid is a green and generic mana for an uncommon 0/2 elf druid, and it taps to add a green, and you put a -1/-1 counter on it to untap it. And that's what it does. So you can, on turn 3, you can move up to 4 mana or 5 mana. That's a big jump.
5 mana.
That's a big jump.
3 is a big jump.
Yeah, there were some big scary turns. This is the type of card that it was printed in Shadowmoor, so it's easy to kind of maintain what it does in that type of format. But like, because the Planeswalkers weren't like amazing, the Planeswalkers, they didn't have Nissa. You know what I mean? They couldn't like power in a turn 3 Nissas with this thing. But it was still fantastic for its time, and then later became a infinite combo piece with all sorts of things because you removed counters.
Yeah, what really pushed us over the edge was Vizier of Remedies, again from the Amonkhet block, where if a creature would receive a -1/-1 counter, you put one less on it instead. So it doesn't have that drawback. So if you're able to have these two creatures, it's just whoop, 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 whoop. You make infinite mana. You're probably running an Elf deck anyways, which has a lot of mana sinks, such as Azuri. You're able to pump all these little creatures into really big, trampling monstrosities. And this is just one of those combo decks that you need to deal with immediately.
Yeah, or you can get Duskwatch Recruiter, draw your entire library, and power out an infinite Walking Ballista.
Yeah.
Even before Vizier of Remedies, another card that references -1/-1 counters, Melira. Melira Pod was real popular for a while there. And even before that, Devoted Druid comboed with another card that combos with -1/-1 counters, Quill Spike. Because you could make an infinite size Quill Spike with this card. I have fond memories of Devoted Druid, which, by the way, is my number 5.
Nice.
Because I would play this on turn 2, and then turn 3 I would play the card Dramatic Entrance and put out Progenitus, because I was that guy.
Dramatic Entrance is infamous because some guys bought like 200 copies, wrote a fake tournament report about that card saying it was the killer card of the deck and, absolutely OP in Standard. It blew up totally in their faces and, of course, was immediately found out because Magic players can't fall. They'll fall for some things, but can't be faking tournament results, guy.
I played a really bad Dramatic Entrance impromptu raid deck at States that year with Doomgape and Progenitus and Woodfall Primus. It was not good.
Oh my goodness. Well, we've already talked about my number 2, so let's go ahead and pivot right into it. Melira Sylvok Outcast is my number 2. What? It has no -1/-1 counter right on it. Yeah. It does. It prevents them. And yet, Melira Sylvok Outcast is a green and generic mana for a 2/2 rare legendary human scout. We can't go through these lists without having some controversial thing, can we? It says you can't get poison counters. Creatures you control can't have -1/-1 counters placed on them. Creatures your opponents control lose infect. It's Haterade. It's a combo enabler. It turns off -1/-1 counters for your stuff, but doesn't mean their stuff. So Black Sun Zenith becomes a one-sided affair. I think this card is dope. I love how it interacts with -1/-1 counter cards and things like Kitchen Finks and, of course, Devoted Druid. All that stuff is super neat to me. That's very, very powerful. Only been printed one time in New Phyrexia, and a card that won a lot of tournaments. Like, this thing was sweet.
She doesn't put counters on anything.
It doesn't put
counters. I don't know if I'm more
counters.
offended that you chose this or if I'm more offended by how you pronounce it. Melira? It's Melira.
Is it Melira? Okay.
Melira.
That's
fine.
Melira. Hey now. Melira, get in the house. Melira.
She's not the girl you danced with at the Hoot Nanny. She's the Sylvok Outcast. Like, I can't believe this.
I didn't dance with at the Hoot Nanny, y'all.
This could be us.
She doesn't put... Ruben, help me.
Listen, I fought the last 2 weeks about cards. I'm exhausted at this point.
We'll make it up with my number 1. All right, Ruben, what's your number 2?
My number 2, only 2 cards in the history of the professional tour, the Magic the Gathering professional tour, with the -1/-1 counters, have won Pro Tours. And one of them is my number 2, and the other one is my number 1. And my number 2, shout out to Homelands! Serrated Arrows.
Yeah.
Is my number 2.
My number 4.
Serrated Arrows is a 4-mana artifact originally from Homelands.
Oh,
people.
yeah.
Enters the battlefield with 3 arrowhead counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are no arrowhead counters on Serrated Arrows, sacrifice it. Tap, remove an arrowhead counter from Serrated Arrows, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. 1 in the main deck, 1 in the sideboard of Paul McCabe's Pro Tour Dallas 1996 Necro Control deck.
This was from the world of the home decapped formats where you had to play at least 5 cards, I think it was 5, from every current standard expansion in your deck. So normally people would put in 4 Serrated Arrows and 1 something or other from Homelands, an Autumn Willow or something if they're playing green. This card was super awesome for its time. Nowadays, it got posted, it got time shifted, which was kind of cool, which is neat. Otherwise, it hasn't been in standard since. And it actually did do a little bit of work in standard, as I recall, even back then, just like a hair for whatever it was worth, to fight stuff like Inkmoth Nexus.
Sorry.
No, this card was great. I have so much awesome, fond memories of this card from back in Homelands. Opening this card in Homelands packs. Yes, I am that old, ladies and gentlemen.
Sure.
This card was great.
The last time I saw this card was during a Pauper event. I was watching Michael Jacobs stream, and he was playing the deck known as Inside Out, which is where you run something like Tireless Tribe, and then you flip the power and toughness, and so you have something that has a lot of power, and usually, just one toughness or something like that. And then, and people were bringing this in as a sideboard bet against that, and I was like, so what? And like, I had to zoom in, I had to Google it, because I remember Serrated Arrows. I was around for Homelands, and I was like, this is Pauper? And so I was just so blown away by this, and it was very niche play, and I think it was a mirror, and so the other Inside Out deck had it too, and I was like, of all the things for a game to boil down to, this
Sometimes it's about having 3 -1/-1 counters. You can put on anything you want.
I love it.
Terrific. Aaron, what's number 2?
I love that characters from Magic's past are getting new cards. We get more opportunities to spend with them and new takes on the cards as well. My number 2 was a bit of a do-over or a fresh take that happened just last year in Commander 2019. It hasn't seen too much play in Commander because Sultai is a very popular color combination, and some people feel that you have just better choices like Mimeoplasm or Muldrotha. But this is another card I would love to pick up one day. It has a lot of broken potential. My number 2 is Vulrath, the Shapestealer. So Vulrath is 2 colorless, a green, a black, and a blue legendary creature shapeshifter, 7 power and 5 toughness. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature. You can pay 1 colorless until your next turn. Vulrath becomes a copy of target creature with a counter on it, except it's 7/5 and it has this ability. There is so much that you can do with this card. You can use those -1/-1 counters offensively to kill small creatures. You can also just sort of become a copy of a more interesting creature on the battlefield. And this is any counter. It doesn't necessarily have to be a -1/-1 counter. There's a lot of combo potential with this. Tomer from MTG Goldfish recently wrote about this, and you can do Vulrath and Devoted Druid. You can do Vulrath plus Viridian Joiner plus Pili-Pala. You can do Vulrath, Ashnod's Altar type things. I mean, there's just so many dumb things you can do with this. And just going over the list, it just blows my mind. But I'm always just happy to see Vulrath again. Vulrath is one of my favorite characters from Magic, and even if it is just a shapeshifter, I will take it.
This is my number 8. I love this card because it gave Vulrath an actual powerful, cool, it's not weirdly underpowered like the old legends were. They played it.
The Fallen.
Yeah, they played it way too safe back in the day. Absolute joke compared to our power levels these days. So this is today's power level with a super BA creature, and I just totally love this creature. I love the way it's designed. I love how it's any counter, not just -1/-1 counters. So it's copying, Ravagers or something weird. It's always fun. But and copying Devoted Druid, you let you use it 5 more times. That's really cool.
She said Pili-Pala.
Pili-Pala's just all right, cool. Ruben, we're moving here to our number 1. I share mine, which I can imagine is sharing it with Aaron. So let's talk about yours
probably my
first.
number 6, I imagine.
Well, yes, I think it would be. But go
Does
ahead.
anyone else have a higher left?
No.
We're at number 1, buddy. You can't.
No. Do you? Nobody has this on their list.
Nobody has this on the list.
Unbelievable. Some people's children. I'll tell you what. I think that this is very clearly, it's clear cut that this is the number 1 -1/-1 counter card. It is the only -1/-1 counter card that is both in the cube and has won a Pro Tour. And I know exactly why it's not on either of your lists, because it's Soulstar Mage. Soulstar Mage, 1 red mana for a 1/2 with prowess. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a creature an opponent controls, put that many -1/-1 counters on that creature instead. I've probably put more -1/-1 counters on opposing creatures with this card than any other card I've ever played Magic with. Of course, it did win the Pro Tour thanks to Wyatt Darby's red deck wins at Pro Tour Dominaria, a format that was kind of dominated by red spells at the time. Rakdos aggro and mid-range and red deck wins. Soulstar Mage still seeing play to this day in the prowess decks. And extremely powerful in any format.
Modern and Pioneer. I think it's going for $5, $3 to $5. I was looking for it when I looked at the Scorpion God, and I was like, oh, it's still got a bit of a price tag on it.
Yeah, this card still sees a ton of play, very aggressively costed. 1 mana prowess creatures that have a sweet upside to them, always good. I agree with you. It's a great -1/-1 counter. I mean, it's a counter card. It's not a Melira or Melira even, but it's fine.
This is my only Amonkhet entry. It looks like also.
I love Amonkhet.
Yeah, we've got multiple options for Amonkhet on our lists here, but yeah.
No red creatures.
Not
unbelievable. No respect for the red 1-drops.
Nope. Some people's children. But for my number 1, though, this is a good number 1.
Yeah, it's a good number
1. I'm very, very happy. Even if it's just number 6 on Ruben's list, and it should be higher, it's okay. You can be wrong. It's fine. But when Wizards came and did this, when they created a product called Modern Horizons, and we saw kind of hit after hit, they're like, we're pushing this power level thing, we're going to bring maximal characters, super duper cool, lost their minds. This used to be like, this was like a $50 pre-order, man. People lost their stuff for this card in particular. Aaron, tell us about what our number 1 is.
So in keeping with my theme, I mentioned being able to revisit characters from Magic Past who either had a card before or in this case didn't. This character had never really been seen like this before. They had only been referred to kind of in passing or in possession of certain things. But this character got their own card for the first time, and it does not disappoint. Our number 1 is Yogmoth, Thran Physician. So Yogmoth is 2 colorless and 2 black. He's a human cleric with 2 power, 4 toughness, and protection from humans. Come on, sideboard. You can pay 1 life and sacrifice another creature to put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature and draw a card. And you can pay 2 black and discard a card to proliferate. So this card is an engine unto itself. There was a little known deck in Modern called Golgari Yogmoth that revolved around Blood Artist, Cavalier of Night, Geralf's Messenger, Strangleroot Geist, and just kind of forming these loops where you could abuse things like Undying and Persist with this card. And once it gets rolling, it just gets out of control so fast.
Yeah, wow. There was this thing got to see competitive play, which was great because like the rate is fantastic. Paying a life and sacrificing creatures at instant speed. Don't have to put any mana into it.
Oh, free. Yeah.
That's right.
So you could tutor with it with your Eldritch Evolutions or your Chord of Calling, get exactly what you need, and then you just have this combo that people just can't deal with.
Yeah, absolutely terrific. So this card is super fun.
Strangleroot Geist to go get this with your Eldritch Evolution. That sounds like a fun time. I like that. This also saw play in certain versions of Nick Fit in Legacy. It's seen Legacy play back in some time. It's even seen some amount of play in like versions of Mardu Pyromancer. Like you just have extra tokens laying around. Sure, let's use those. If you were to tell me that only one of the 4 mana iconic human mythics from Modern Horizons was going to break Modern, I would not have thought it was going to be Urza. I thought it was going to be Yogmoth.
Yeah.
And I hope that it still has time to shine because this card is so cool and so fun and so neat.
Really lives up to its legacy too. Like I said, we had Yogmoth's Will, Yogmoth's Bargain. Yogmoth had only been referred to in certain ways, but this is it. Jerry Thompson famously did a wonderful cosplay
Literally about
of this.
to say that.
Shout out to him.
Look it up if you haven't seen it. Jerry Thompson crushed it.
Everything.
Boy,
it was great.
Nice.
Yeah, this is, and it's hard to, I guess, for those new players, it's hard to sort of describe. Like Yogmoth had such mystery built around this character. There was one kind of weird shot of him as like this giant thing in an inquest one time, and that was like all people had to go off of, and that's all they ever said he looked like. When in reality, like he was an actual character, a human character that later turned and got completed, as they do. And yeah, this was just a fantastic home run in terms of excitement and stuff with Modern Horizons.
You see the birth of that Phyrexian symbol on his hip there in the art. Just a great homage. Everything you wanted from that kind of set.
I am excited for the return of the Phyrexians. I have a feeling we might go there next year, maybe, but we'll see. It's time to go back and see what happened when new Phyrexia got completed.
Well, we'll get more -1/-1 counters cards when they happen.
That'll be fun. I like that. And that also concludes our top 10 -1/-1 counter cards. Goodness gracious, you'll see them on screen right now via review. Take a look at my list, Aaron's list, Ruben's top 10. And we want to hear from you about what card we did not talk about. And we'll select our favorite to win a $50 gift certificate to CoolStuffInc.com. But before we go, I want to thank my co-host. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ruben.
Let us know what you think about Melira in the comments below.
Say hi to her at the Hoot Nanny for me.
At the Meliras, hey!
Dun, 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 dun.
Down at the Hoot Nannies, that's what we do. And we go to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, my co-hosts, Aaron Camel and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching or listening. I hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv at Magic Mics, on Twitter at Magic Mics Cast, our Magic Mics subreddit, and like the Magic Mics page on Facebook. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes and Spotify. Or just join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.